done seen some things in my life, but I was just like, yo, I didn't know you had, like soul glow in your crotch.
5, 4, 3 all the way. Then we got to one finger salute. We have Caffeine Controversy, the podcast.
Alrighty, so we are here for episode 2 of Caffeine Controversy with your host, the fluffy one, Big Levi, and then we have...
I thought you were going to introduce me.
You introduce yourself.
Oh, you should introduce me.
Why should I introduce you?
Because you always do.
No, bull.
Cara, or PGP, Pale Ginger Pear, or the 1,000 nicknames that he has.
Butt cheeks! But we're here with another episode of Caffeine Controversy, and we got some topics that we definitely want to talk about. If you watched the first episode, definitely shouts out to you. Thank you for watching. Keep tuning in for more. We do have some topics, and it was weird that I actually, because with my non-planning ass, I actually did something and did a little look up on some things that I wanted to talk about. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is obviously we are interracial, ebony and pasty, and we are here to really change the game. Now, I want to hear from you because I want to go over this experience and I can talk about it as well.
Okay.
What is it like being with somebody of the opposite race? What was your first black partner and what was that like? Yeah, because I'm going to talk about the first time I dived in some snow. Has there been that many that it's like...
No, I was just trying to figure out if it was like a hookup thing or if it was like a relationship.
First time you got the D, mandingo strokes. When was the first time you got that?
That was shortly after my divorce.
Yeah, my guy.
And he was 10 years younger.
Word, look at you little bear cat. PGP, Mrs. known as Surrender of the Butt Cheeks. You made a clap on him. That's what I know you did.
It wasn't the best experience.
But you never went back. So then
I did.
You did?
I did. A time or two I tried dating, because I always went for the person.
Yeah.
And everything. So it wasn't necessarily like they had to be a certain race.
Yeah. So what we're learning here is you don't discriminate.
No.
Okay.
No.
United Nations type of things. Okay, continue.
Yeah. As I've joked before, that high school was like the Justin Timberlake blonde hair, blue eye kind of crush.
Well, that's because your surroundings too. There's nothing but that around here.
Yeah. And then it was first relationship was a white guy. Then I met the ex-husband who's Puerto Rican. And then
freaking Rican, John Leguizamo.
Not quite.
Not quite, but it's all right.
And then
Sazon.
And then dated white, brown, all different after that.
Yeah.
And just kind of again, I went for the...
So you're definitely more of a personality type of person.
Oh, 1,000%.
Okay.
Because I can, not to this relationship, but I can say past relationships, I would not have dated if it was based just off of the looks.
Yeah. I'm definitely one of those type of people too. I've never discriminated on where I put my pecker. Because I put it in some strange places now. But have a wide array of sexual partners. I would say the first time I dived in some snow, I was 17 when I was diving in some snow. So it was definitely a different experience for that.
I was 30.
Yeah. But that was the thing, is I was on some hoe shit and you were out here in the Bible Belt. This is why we don't have an OnlyFans, because this is literally why we don't, because you still believe in the guilt of a God that you don't believe in. But the first time I delved into snow, that was that. And it wasn't bad, but I always felt like I was and I didn't I've been with Black, Spanish, Asian, obviously, white. but it's been like one of those things where I was like, yo, it wasn't like a preference, but it was like personality wise, like I grew up in the hood, so it was like I would go for who, especially being big, I would mess with people who would mess with me.
Right.
And like I didn't really like think anything about race or anything like that, but then when I found out, what a pog is, and like it was like I'm about this action. So like I progressively kept diving in some snow, but then I would dabble back, but then I didn't really care. Like like the personality is what mattered the most. I've done some freaky things in those times. Like there was some times where I was like, hey, yo, like I don't really feel like this is like. I would say I was watching a podcast earlier and it was good description of so pussy.
Yeah.
When did you ever have? Because I've had some so. Have you ever had some so? And if so, what was so about it? And we ain't talking about so deaf Jermaine Dupri.
Well, with my first experience, like I was starting to say, and then we get sidetracked easily.
Yeah.
I worked for an attorney at the time, and was also running an apartment off of that attorney.
Yep.
I met him at the law office, so not the best past, but met him at the law office. But we bantered really well.
You are the definition of a person that will. You dumpster dived for dick. Like there is no other way to describe it, because you would find the good in Satan. So, but continue.
So he came over to the apartment and
smashed.
We had like just moved in, so I didn't really have like a lot of furniture yet, and we were.
He got in them guts on the hardwood floor?
No, we were out on like the couch or whatever, but his phone would not stop going off. Like literally like 30 plus times it must have rang. And I was just like, turn it off. Like, because it would distract him like every time. And then he very clearly was dead set on just back shots, which I mean, I get, I'm well aware, especially when the hips were like 72 inches. Like, I get it. But it wasn't working with the couch. So between like the couch and the phone ringing nonstop, it was like, just stop. Like, it just wasn't. And then the attorney also owned a cigar shop that was next door to the apartment, and saw him leaving the apartment.
Yeah.
So the next day at work, he was like, I was like, yeah. He's like, you do know he's like a baby. And I was like, he is legally 21.
Yep. And you were how old?
31.
Yeah. Okay. Was that your biggest age gap?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I found out like 3 days later that he had a girlfriend.
Oh.
Because she came in to pay. Or she thought she was his girlfriend. I don't know. She might not have been.
There
was somebody else.
You weren't. I mean, he wasn't. Y'all. He wasn't your girlfriend when he was in them giblets.
But I also wonder if that's who was blowing up his phone, and that's what was like distracting him, that he couldn't really perform well.
Yeah.
Because like, oh shit, like guilt.
Yeah.
Interruption kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I've done some freaky stuff. I mean, I was 18. The oldest girl I've been with was 45. So that was like a disparity. But it was like I was a freshman in college, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna smash. When I went to New Orleans, that was a fun time. That was a real fun time.
Do you even remember?
Barely. I remember like getting with a chick that had I didn't smash, but I got like we had made out, and I had we had done some things, and she was like newly divorced. Like I was 24, she was like 44 and whatever, and she just bought herself some brand new like equipment. So I played with the equipment, you know what I mean? But that was it. And then there was but I've done some hoe shit. Definitely done some hoe shit.
Yeah.
But I would say like one of the things that I've never done, which is something that I wanted to talk about, not that I want to do, but one of the things that I felt like is real impactful for the community of relationships, because we talked last episode about a 1 through 5, and I want to talk about somebody who also had a 1 through 5, but they 1 through 5 was definitely illegal, and that's R. Kelly.
Oh my God.
So there's this debate online, and I actually wanted to pull it up. Hold on. And it truly is, because obviously we know R. Kelly, the Pied Piper, is like one of the most disgusting human beings ever, right?
Yeah.
But R. Kelly is also one of the most impactful artists of the 90s, and we're 80s babies, right?
Yeah.
So can we as millennials separate the difference of R. Kelly, the artist, and R. Kelly, the perpetrator? Because now in today's generation, with the popularity of 50 Cent's documentary of Diddy, people really are going to start redoing that.
Yeah.
Because my thing is it Robert Kelly who pissed on them people? Or was it R. Kelly who just started giving out golden showers? Because Robert Kelly is the one that's in jail.
Right.
But R. Kelly made Bump and Grind.
But R. Kelly also had age ain't nothing but a number.
This is facts. Because he shot it out. Little Aaliyah's got it. And we all know who was the first victim.
Yeah. So to me, that's where it's like they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Like he did it. Because if we really, and this is not justifying anyone's behavior, but if we really start to pick out every single artist and celebrity that's done some fucked up shit, there's no one left to really.
I know.
So like, but so many.
But his was so egregious because it was children.
Yes, 1,000%. Plus, he intermingled his work and his personal life. There's a lot of artists that you wouldn't know a single thing about them off stage. Mm-hmm. And then like they pass away and all these skeletons come out and you're like, oh, okay.
So with that being said, should you feel guilty if an R. Kelly song comes on and you start vibing to it? Because we had this debate at the wedding is, do we play R. Kelly or not?
Right.
Because R. Kelly vibe was the song.
Yeah.
Bump and Grind was the song. Ignition was the song.
Oh, that's such a good song.
Right? Bars, he's behind them. But like this is where like the situation comes in, my guy, because like we really don't know. I mean we know, but how do we feel about that?
I did hear that, and I don't know how true this is, but I did hear that some people are justifying it because the money earned from the streams is going to the victims. I don't know if that's true.
Yep.
If that's the case, then listen to it, let them get the money because they're not going to get it any other way.
This is big facts.
Or maybe the loop around is doing it where you find somebody doing a remix of it.
Yeah.
So like they're who the profits and the streams and the views are going to versus him, because if the money's not going to the victims, I don't want another cent going to him. I don't want it going on his books. I don't want it going to his lawyers. I don't want him having an ounce of niceness in jail because I listened to a song.
So with that, you can separate the difference between R. Kelly, Robert Kelly, and all of those things. Because this generation that we're going through right now with Diddy is something that, I mean, obviously what you see with other people that have gone to jail famously. I mean, we were talking about it with, they're redoing the whole Malcolm in the Middle thing, and then there has one of the brothers that like went to jail for all the crimes that he committed.
Yeah.
So we're seeing people really have to try to like separate and divide a lot of like emotions and facts versus like it's a very divisive topic, because like a lot of people, especially with entertainment, are very much so just in a bubble of insanity right now.
I think too it shows that like if you are more socially attractive to the general masses, both male and female, you can get away with more shit.
Yeah, but R. Kelly is too.
No, I know.
Because Trapped in the Closet, you ain't never watched that whole series.
I think you've shown me clips and I was like, this is
when that
bizarre.
little dude came out the closet, You can't say what he said in there because it's not appropriate. But when old boy who was about yay high just came out the closet and he came out like doom doom, like, you know what I mean? Like, my man was out here ready.
R. Kelly was very much that 90s kind of bad boy, kind of rougher. And so there was a whole group that would have been like, oh, no, like.
Yeah. So we'll end the R. Kelly one with this because it's a good conversation. To most people that are victims or harassed, the person that is doing the harassment, when that victim doesn't know they're a victim, has felt like, oh, this is very charming and cool and calm, because they present an environment that they are easily able to relax in. Some people relax in that bad boy atmosphere. Some people relax in that coddling atmosphere. If you put that in the reverse, some people would tighten up. So you never really know.
Yeah.
But that's a great conversation. And it's going to go into my next point, because both of them would cause what I like to call coochie conflict. So,
okay.
Coochie conflict. The reason I wanted to talk about this is, have you ever had a moment where you were conflicted on what you wanted to do with your coochie? Like, if there was like, was there like a person was like, you know what, I want to smash this so bad, but I know it's a bad decision.
Oh, for sure.
Should I do it? Should I not do it? Give me an example, because I'll give you one of mine, of my dick flicks, of where you didn't do it, and then there was one where you did.
Well, one where I did was started out as friends. He was in a relationship.
Oh, I think I know who this one is.
That we won't name names.
Yeah.
There was an instant chemistry connection. Like, we met out in the wild, instant connection, and it was
the wild of Beaver County. But
I mean, like, most of my stuff was online. Like, this was like random at a store kind of meeting. And it was like an instant vibe, personality, like banter kind of thing. And so then every time I went to the store and he was working, it just continued. And then he started to follow me on Instagram, which was really strange because my Instagram was very small at the time. And it was like the first time that I knew somebody locally was following me. And so then all of a sudden, like, my safe little bubble of like, well, I can post my bikini pics because nobody sees it. Like, nobody I know sees it. These are strangers in other states. Like, no, this is somebody I'm going to see. And like, this was pre-surgery. This was like 2018, you know, kind of thing. And he was into photography as well. So we started doing like some shoots together, like up and up shoots, not like OF shoots, you know, kind of thing. Why don't you think I was doing it with someone else and not with you?
I don't really care.
No, I know, but you know,
I'm very secure in me. So
no, I just mean that I would say yes to somebody else and be like, no.
Yeah.
But no, just like, and then it continued, and it went from like just the flirty banter to like, my relationship is like done. It's not a thing anymore. Like, it's open. They know, blah, 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 blah. And like, part of me was like, I should confirm with her. Cause like, we were kind of friends. Like, him and I were really friends. Her and I were like social because I would see them together, or like I'd be at their house editing photos and like she would come talk a little bit, then she would go. Part of me was like, I should just like confirm with her that she's done, and the part of me was like, I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
And so it did end up progressing, and like we hooked up, and it was like an on again, off again thing for quite a while. And then I found out that not only was that relationship not done, but like I found out by the person he's with now announcing on Facebook that they've been dating, and it was like a great first month. And it wasn't so much that, like, I mean, it hurt that there was someone else, obviously, but what really hurt was, like, I was getting, like, the runaround excuse of, like, the only reason we hadn't gone public yet was because, like, they were waiting for the school year to end before they told the kids that, like, they were, like, done. Because the older kids were graduating. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't want to ruin their senior year with the news.
Yeah.
So, like, again, I foolishly was like, okay.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
Yep, finding boyfriends in the dumpster. One where you didn't. Or did you always do?
Well, I mean, I haven't slept with that many people.
Yeah. Unlike some people.
We are definitely opposite ends of the spectrum with that.
I'm on my hoish.
There was a first, like, it was a one-time date thing. Mm-hmm. And, like, after we had gone out, we, like, stopped back by his hotel to get something or whatever. And I could tell once we were there, like, he really wanted, like, more to happen. And I was just like, it was a conflict because, like, I was attracted to him and, like, everything. And, like, I had zero reason not to, other than, like, I don't know if it was the Christian school guilt. I don't know if it was, like, a vibe. Like, there was just nothing. I was like, you know, I was like, you're in town for a couple more days. Like, I'm just going to go home tonight. I have work early in the morning. Like,
yeah. But,
like, we'll catch up, like, tomorrow night or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then because, like, I did nothing that night, I didn't hear from him again.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah. I had one where I really wish I didn't. And it was for, like, a summer. I wanted to hook with this chick. Thick as all hell. And I was just like, you know what, I'm for it. And it was cool and stuff like that. Because, like, we wound up going to a party at in Narragansett, Rhode Island, and my friend Jimmy drove us, and then I got the number, we started texting and stuff like that, and then, like, we wound up dating for the summer or whatever, and yeah, I wound up, like, actually liking her and falling for her because I wasn't trying to, like, put myself into an emotional place. I just wanted to, partly my brain was like just smashed, but I was like this is something, I feel like, because she was such a good person, I was like, this might be something more than just a smash. And, you know, I mean, me and her are actually okay, but it was like, because even to this day, like we follow each other on Instagram and shit like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, I kind of wish we didn't go to that level, but I was blinded by butt cheeks because her shit's fat, and I was just like, you know what, this is going to be a problem if I don't do it, right? And I wound up getting hurt, and that's when I took my sabbatical from doing some hoe shit. And there was one time where I really didn't, and I was getting ready to smash. I was getting ready to just smash, right? Because, again, blinded by butt cheeks. You know what I mean? Homegirl was thick. She was cool and everything, too, and she could hold her liquor. And I was like, yo, this is all right, because I was out here partying, bro. I was drinking and throwing it. And I was just like, this is perfect. Like, she can handle this shit? This is nice. You know what I mean? Because I feel it's like, it's a turn on where a person knows themselves. Like, if you know them, if you know yourself, you have confidence within yourself. She had that, and I was like, all right, bet. But then, like, when we getting into the hot and heavies and whatever, you know what I mean? Like we start and we kissing and whatever, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go in the room. You know what I mean? Get stuff situated and whatever. And, like, she comes out, and I'm like, okay, cool, all right. You know what I mean? Like, I see, like, she thick and whatever. She takes her shirt off, and she got this trail of belly hair going all the way up. And then that led to, like, she had, like, the little curly cues outside the bikini thing. I was like, all right, you know what I mean? It's whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I done seen some things in my life, but I was just like, yo, I didn't know you had, you know, like, soul glow in your crotch, you know what I mean? With the Jerry curls and joint. And then I'm like, yo, and then I was like, my head, I was like, yo, it could still be good. It could still be good, right? Because, like, I'm over here butt naked. Because if I say no now, like, put my clothes on, it's going to be awkward.
Yeah.
And then she was like, I was like, yo, just, you know what I mean? So we still making out and whatever, right? And then, like, I'm getting ready. I was like, yo, I was like, let's start back shots. And she's like, all right. And she turns over, and her whole back looked like a Yeti, my guy. And then the whole thing was like, it was hair all the way through the crack to the back to the shoulders. And I was like, look, thanks, but no thanks. And that's how I said no thanks. I said no thank you. I said no thank you. And I know that's asshole, but I was like, no thank you.
I would have been bawling.
I know, but like, look, she was like, you asshole. I was like, bro, like, what do you want me to do? Like, you look like Wolfman. You out here Michael J. Fox in your shit, and you want me to fucking have some like disrespect for myself? I was like, look, I'm just now finding myself as a human being, and like, I got no problem with you. You look amazing. It's put together properly, but you need to get some big razors or something, because like, you should not have this level of hair.
She probably had like PCOS or something that caused like the hormonal imbalance.
I didn't understand what that was at the time.
Well, I mean, you still don't get Vagisil now.
But that's the point. Like, so like, but I didn't understand what that was.
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, and she was mean. I was mean. She said I was mean. I was like, look, I just don't want to do this. Like, I'm sorry. I just don't want to do it. She's like, why? I was like, cause you hairy. I was like, I can understand. Like, if you had like your little bush and whatever, I wouldn't have cared. But it's like, I'm 300 and change, and I'm manscaped up for you. You know what I mean? Because I was like planning on getting this. You couldn't trim nothing, like weed whackers. I know you got them because I seen you in the backyard. Like you ain't like, we ain't like, why? Like, you could, like, if you would have said like, look, hey, or even warn somebody, be like, yo, I'm hairy as shit right now. Okay, cool. No, you don't get it.
So was that you were caught off guard?
Hell yeah, she didn't say nothing.
So that was the issue.
She didn't say.
If you had known, would you still?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so it's not a complete like body. No,
but I was.
But
this is the thing: is like, I didn't know.
You were also younger.
I didn't know how to say like, how do I say? I was like, no, I just said no, thank you. And she's like, why? And she's like, I was like, you hairy, I can't. I was like, you didn't tell nobody. I was like, if you would have said something, I wouldn't have been like, this is wrong. But I was like, yo, I can't. Like,
you don't do well with surprises.
No, I don't.
That's like your autism.
Like, I don't. Like, I really don't. Like, if we're going somewhere and you be like, hey, can we stop here? I'm instantly pissed. I know. Like, I'm instantly pissed. Like, Danny, what the fuck you said? Like, and literally that's how my brain goes.
I know.
But like,
you'll be like, no, we're going home.
Yeah.
I'm like, but
no, we're going home. Like you said, we're going home. So guess what? That's what you said. So that's what I'm doing. First rule. Because like, if you say something, you got to have it planned out for me. I'll forget it, but you got to have it planned out for me. But like, that's the thing, is like, I'll be mad at myself for forgetting, but I won't be mad at you because you didn't say nothing. Like, say something. So that was like one of the things. I was instantly thrown off. And then like, it took like a couple months and we saw each other at a party and she's like, you asshole. I was like, I'm sorry. I told her I'm sorry. And she's like, you still want to smash? And then we smashed. But like, I just knew. But at least I knew at the time, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know Yeti was all out there. And she knew she was going to get something, so she trimmed up a little bit. Like, she at least got her belly hair and her back hair, but she had an ass fro. But
I mean, I feel like that's not the easiest spot to.
No, so I understood that.
And like,
she understood, but like, yo, like, have your homegirl trim your back. You had a roommate. Have your girl trim your back. At least line it up. But like, yeah, like, you gotta tell me on that. Like, don't spring that shit on me. Don't spring that on me. You know what I mean? Because it was like, yo, like, she had ass, but it was like, but you don't want to feel like you smashing Mr. Ed with some horseback.
Oh my god.
Look, I know I'm not a good individual when I was in my 20s and some of my 30s. Some would even say my 40s. But I'm like, at least I'm honest with the fact that I was an asshole. Yeah. And I still smashed, so she got what she wanted. Me.
Oh my
god. Why? What? She got a prize. I just haven't.
Oh my god.
I'm not a prize?
No, I mean, you are. I don't know about that situation.
No, I'm not. Maybe not, but I'll put it like this. Her end goal was me. And she was my end goal too. So I still smashed. It was good. But at that moment when she sprung that on me, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I was like, no, thank you. And I was proud of myself for saying no, thank you. Because like, that was a big step for me.
Yeah. I don't think you'd be that nice now.
No. I instantly leave with my wife. Like, when I was at work, somebody, it was like, oh, you have your ring on. I was like, yeah. It was like, it's my wife's wedding dress, because like for anybody that knows, I have my wedding band has my wife's dress in it. And I was like, she's my emotional support person. They was like, oh, I'm sorry. They thought you were dead. And I was just like, I was like, no.
Wow.
I was like, no. I was like, my wife's alive and well. Maybe not well, but she's alive. She's dead inside.
Wellish.
Which leads into the final topic of this episode, which is, and we saw this on the podcast, and I feel like we should address it. What is the proper time to get some cheeks after your partner's died? If they've died, like, let's say like they were in a horrible accident, like, you know what I mean, like they got crushed by like the apocalypse of the future or some shit, or just World War III, something happened, like zombies, and they are dead. How long is the appropriate time before you smash?
I mean, I feel like you can't say like a set time for everybody. However, if I find out you're smashing within the first year after I did, I'm haunting your ass.
Yeah. I feel like you have to at least wait 365 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's fair.
I mean, I know that there's people that don't. Like,
Yeah.
1,000%.
I have friends that have married like the same year that their partner died.
I mean, my dad was like dating, and that was weird as hell because like he was never like, I don't remember him like romantic with my mom until like the very end when he was trying to like repent.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then to like all of a sudden see him like super like romantic with somebody else, and like I was pregnant at the time, and he was like, yeah, like what is like Riley gonna call her? And I'm like, nothing. Like, by the time he's talking, I'm thinking to myself, by the time he's talking, she's not going to be around.
Yeah.
Like, and she wasn't. I don't even think she was around when I had him. Like, and that was just a couple months.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I
feel like 365 days is like standard.
That's the bare fucking minimum.
I feel like standard.
Bare fucking minimum.
Bare minimum standard. Like,
I will haunt your ass.
I feel like that's standard. I feel like it's fair. I mean, like, some people, like...
You can't do anything after me.
Yeah, I've already reached, like, my sexual apex. I can't say what she does, but she does a lot. That's for the OnlyFans.
I've ruined him.
Yeah. But, like, I don't know. I don't think there's like an appropriate time. Like if you hated your partner and like, let's say like,
well, yeah,
then like, you know what I mean? Get after it. Like I feel bad for those people who are like, they stayed in a relationship and waited for their person to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just like,
we were both in shitty past relationships.
Yeah. And I feel like that's like a terrible place to be, because like they should be able to smash obviously quicker.
Yeah.
But then you have people that, like if it's your love, like if it's the love of your life and they pass away like tragically and whatever, I don't think that healing process is so individualized. Like you don't even know. Like,
well, I mean, we just know from like what it's like to have lost our mothers.
Yeah.
And like it's coming up on a year for you.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy. Yeah.
It was 18 years just a couple weeks ago for me. Yeah. And it still hits me at times like it was yesterday. So, like, I couldn't even imagine if something happened to you.
Yeah. Now, this is something that's crazy. It's like if you're a polygamist and one of your old ladies or your old boys die, when's the time you smash after that?
Yeah.
Just think about that.
Because it's not a rotation.
Exactly.
Like, are they understanding? Or are they like, it's my night?
Yeah. Run that D.
Ugh.
I know.
It's another reason why I could never.
Yeah.
Never.
Ashes to ashes and dick to dick. And that's been another episode of Caffeine Controversy. We will be back next Monday. Follow your misfits. We are out. Deuces.
Make sure you follow us on all platforms, you misfits. And just remember, caffeine is first. The filter is never.